Or maybe, without even realizing it, you were looking for a quiet space where words arrive gently and silence is part of the conversation too. I wrote this story with care, like stitching together memories, pain, and small discoveries, hoping that somewhere in the middle you might see a piece of yourself. If that happens, even just for a moment, stay. Listen for as long as you need, and if something in it moves you, feel free to leave a trace, not a big one. Sometimes, a simple "I'm here" in the comments, or a quiet like, a share, or subscribing to keep in touch, is more than enough. If you'd met me at 17, you'd probably think I had the world figured out. I was that quiet kid with straight A's, always in the front row, always raising my hand. While other girls spent their weekends partying or obsessing over prom dresses, I was neck-deep in Python tutorials and robotics club projects. I didn't mind. I had a plan. Since I was 8, I wanted to become a software engineer. Not the Silicon Valley startup kind, more like the solve real-world problems with data kind. I pictured myself in a university lab, working on AI tools to help with disaster recovery, maybe even climate change. I didn't just want success. I wanted purpose. And my parents, well, they always said they were proud. Every honor roll certificate was met with a pat on the back. Every robotics medal, a "That's my girl" from Dad, and a "Let's frame that" from Mom. They even opened a college savings account for me when I was in 3rd grade. I still remember Dad taking me to the bank saying, "This money's for your future, kiddo. We believe in you." So yeah, I really thought I had something solid beneath my feet, a foundation. But in hindsight, I guess that foundation was built more on words than actual support. See, in my house, there were always 2 versions of support. One for me, the overachiever, the planner, the quiet one. And then there was the version for my older brother, Jason, the golden boy. Jason was different. He was charming in that chaotic, get-away-with-anything way. Dropped out of college after 1 semester, moved back home, jumped from job to job like stepping stones, never really landing anywhere. Still, my parents worshipped the ground he walked on. He crashed Mom's car once while drunk. They blamed peer pressure. He quit a well-paying job because his boss wasn't vibing with his energy. They said corporate culture just wasn't for him. He wanted to try real estate? They paid for his license course. Then when he bailed on that to start a landscaping business, Dad bought him a used pickup and even designed his business cards. Me? I got a cake when I got into every school I applied to. Not bitter, just different energy. But I never let that bother me too much, because I had the fund, the promise, the future that no one could take away. I used to daydream about packing my bags for MIT, or maybe Carnegie Mellon. My walls were covered in printed course catalogs, quotes from female tech pioneers, and sticky notes mapping out my 4-year plan. I had tunnel vision for that dream, and I trusted my parents when they said they had my back. Because they told me they did. Because they opened that savings account for me. Because they said they believed in me. And honestly, that was all I needed to believe in myself. Until the day I learned what that support actually meant. Senior year, October. It was one of those crisp New England mornings where the leaves look like fire and your breath fogs up when you speak. I remember the exact moment I opened my email and saw the subject line, Conditional Early Admission, MIT. I couldn't breathe for a second. I clicked so fast I almost shut down my laptop. They wanted me, not maybe, not apply and will consider. They were offering conditional early admission based on merit. All I had to do was submit proof that I could afford the remaining tuition within 30 days. I laughed, out loud, alone in the kitchen. Because for the first time, I felt like everything I'd ever worked for was real, tangible. Achievable. I printed the letter and carried it around like a golden ticket all morning. At lunch, I handed it to Mom while she was unloading groceries. She skimmed it, smiled distractedly, and said, "That's great, sweetheart. MIT. Wow, we're so proud." Then she went back to sorting celery and frozen peas. "Mom," I said gently, "they just need the financial form. I have to confirm we can pay our part." She paused, her hand hovering over a bag of lemons. "Right, the college fund. We should talk to your dad about that." It was weird. She didn't sound happy, more like tense. That night after dinner, I brought it up again, this time to both of them. "I need to submit the financial paperwork in the next 2 weeks. It's just the confirmation about the fund you set up for me." They looked at each other. Dad exhaled. Mom smiled too fast. "Honey," she said, "the thing is, the last couple of years have been hard, you know?" I blinked. "Okay, but the college fund? That's been building since I was a kid." Dad spoke up, but his voice was tight. "We had to make some adjustments." Mom added quickly, "It's not that we don't want to help, it's just—" Jason was really struggling after the landscaping thing. He had this idea for a home renovation business, and the bank wouldn't give him a loan. So I didn't even let her finish. "You used my college fund? For Jason's business?" They froze, like they didn't expect me to say it out loud. Mom bit her lip. "It was a family decision." I felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. "You used it when?" Dad rubbed the back of his neck. "A few months ago. July, I think. Just until things stabilize." I pulled out my phone, logged into the student banking portal where I used to track the college fund. 0. Not a few hundred missing. Not, "We used some." All of it. Gone. Withdrawn 3 months ago? 3 months? That was before Jason even started the LLC. I looked up, feeling something shatter inside me. "You didn't even tell me." Dad's voice was low. "We didn't want to stress you out before senior year." Mom reached across the table, but I pulled back. "You said you believed in me. That's what the fund was for. For me." She whispered. Jason was really low. He needed something to believe in, too. "You're strong. You'll figure something out." And just like that, it was clear. This wasn't just about money. It was about priority. Jason wasn't just the favorite. He was the only one they were willing to sacrifice for. Me? I was just the one they expected to survive anything. After the college fund reveal, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just shut down. I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. I quietly emailed the admissions counselor at MIT, told her I'd have to decline the conditional offer due to financial limitations. She responded with a kind but final, "We hope to see you apply again in the future." The dream that kept me going since I was a kid? Gone. Just like that. I started looking into community college options nearby. Not what I wanted, but at least it was something. The tuition was lower, and I figured I could take some general ed classes while figuring out my next move. But even that hit a wall I didn't see coming. A few weeks later, I applied for a student credit card. You know, just to build some credit, cover textbooks, maybe afford a new laptop someday. I filled out the form online, clicked submit, and got denied within seconds. Reason: high credit risk. That made 0 sense. I had no debt, no prior cards, not even a car loan. So I pulled my credit report. That's when my stomach dropped. There it was. A $42,000 business loan opened 9 months ago in my name. I stared at the screen like it had to be a mistake. Maybe identity theft? Some weird data mix-up? But the business name listed, JR Concepts, LLC. Jason's home renovation startup. I remembered that name from the cheap flyers he had printed and left on neighbors' porches. his whole fixer-upper empire that fizzled out after 2 months because, in his words, clients were too picky. The loan was real, the balance was real, and it was tied to me. I confronted my parents that night. Mom froze when I said the words, $42,000 business loan. Dad just looked tired. You told me you were helping Jason get a loan, I said slowly. You said I just needed to sign something small. You told me it was co-signing. Dad cleared his throat. It was the only way we could qualify. You had no debt, clean history. It made sense, and it's all family, right? It's not family when it destroys my credit, I shot back. Mom tried to soften it. Jason just needed a leg up, and we believed you'd both figure it out. It's not like you were using your credit for anything. You mean like college, or a car, or rent if I ever wanted to move out? They didn't answer. I called the bank the next day, asked if the loan could be transferred, refinanced, anything. But I wasn't just a cosigner. I was the sole borrower. Jason was listed only as the business owner. That's when it hit me. They didn't just lie to me, they used me, strategically, because I was the responsible one, because I had good credit, because I didn't ask questions. And now, not only did I not have a college fund, I had debt. Real, adult, tank your credit score kind of debt. That's when the switch flipped inside me. It was the moment I stopped believing that family meant protection and started realizing it meant liability if you weren't careful. They thought I'd just keep pushing forward, smile through it, bounce back like I always did, but something broke that day. Not in a falling apart kind of way. More like the rebuilding kind. I knew, from that moment on, I was done being their safety net. If I wanted to build a future, I'd have to start from zero and build it quietly on my own. There was no big blowout, no screaming match, no slammed doors, no dramatic note left on the kitchen table. Just a quiet morning, a packed duffel bag, and the cold click of my bedroom door closing one last time. I took the early bus out of town before sunrise. I ended up in a small college town about 40 minutes away. No friends, no family. Just me, my laptop that ran like it had asthma, and exactly $312.47 in my checking account. It wasn't a plan so much as an exit strategy. I found a tiny room for rent above a retired couple's garage. No stove, just a microwave and a hot plate. The kind of place you find on Craigslist with too many typos and a weird smell you eventually stop noticing. By day, I worked at a local cafe downtown, the Copper Bean. I started on the register, but eventually picked up shifts bussing tables and doing the morning prep. Minimum wage, cash tips, endless sore feet. By night, I built myself a different kind of future. I didn't go out. I didn't scroll TikTok or binge Netflix like other people my age. Instead, I buried myself in free online courses, EDX, Coursera, Khan Academy. I started learning Python more seriously, then SQL, then machine learning. I downloaded books from open source libraries. I watched lectures from Stanford and MIT. Ironically, the very school I was supposed to attend. The laptop overheated constantly. Sometimes I had to stick it in front of a fan just to get through a single video. But I didn't stop, because I wasn't just learning for a degree anymore. I was learning for leverage. One night, while closing the cafe, I overheard a group of grad students complaining about how hard it was to find scholarships that weren't just the basic FAFSA stuff. "It's like they hide the good ones on purpose," one girl said, throwing her hands up. That line stuck in my head the entire bus ride home. I started researching. Turns out, she was right. There are literally thousands of under-the-radar scholarships, offered by small foundations, private companies, niche interest groups. Stuff like left-handed students from rural counties, or descendants of coal miners pursuing environmental science. But there was no central database. No easy search. It was like a secret society of money, and only people with the right connections ever heard about it. That's when the idea hit me. What if I built a platform to find the scholarships that nobody talks about? A tool that used machine learning to scan the web, match students with obscure scholarships based on their personal traits, background, field of study, even weird stuff like hobbies or ancestry. I wrote it down on a napkin during my lunch break the next day. Scholar Mine? That was the name. A platform to mine the internet for hidden scholarship gold. Every night after my shift, I worked on the prototype. I didn't tell anyone, not even the other baristas I started getting close to. Because if there's one thing I learned from my family, it's this. People don't always help you because they love you. Sometimes, they help you so they can own you later. I was building something, quietly, painfully, line by line, crash by crash, restart by restart. Scholar Mine wasn't just my way out of debt. It was my way out of the identity they'd boxed me into. The responsible daughter, the backup plan, the one who always survived quiet. Not this time. This time, I wasn't surviving. I was engineering my escape. If you've never built something from scratch while working full-time and living paycheck to paycheck, let me tell you what it feels like. It's waking up at 5 a.m. to open the cafe, making small talk while your brain is still stuck debugging lines of code from the night before. It's burning your fingertips scrubbing hot metal trays while your mind is mapping out database structures. It's writing algorithms on the backs of napkins and then praying your laptop doesn't crash for the fourth time that night. It's this weird, brutal form of hope that tastes a lot like desperation and caffeine. One night after closing, I was scrolling Reddit to distract myself and stumbled on a post in r/startups. Local angel group accepting pitches from early-stage founders. No degree or track record required. It felt fake, too good to be true. But I clicked anyway. It was real. A small angel fund based in Hartford called Forge Capital. Run by former founders who wanted to support scrappy underdog builders. Their words, not mine. They were hosting a community pitch competition. Top prize, $25,000 in seed money, plus mentorship and 6 months of workspace in a local tech incubator. Deadline to apply? 72 hours. I almost closed the tab. Who was I kidding? No formal education, no traction, just a barely working prototype built by a girl with no business background and a mountain of debt in her name. But then I thought, what exactly do I have to lose that hasn't already been taken? I stayed up the entire night reworking my Scholar Mine pitch. I focused on the core problem. Millions of students miss out on life-changing scholarships because the systems to find them are fragmented, outdated, or non-existent, especially for first-gen, low-income, or non-traditional students. I showed how my tool could search, parse, and match obscure scholarships based on variables that traditional platforms ignored, like parental background, disabilities, field-specific interests, even former foster status. I recorded a 1-minute video with the cafe's dusty break room curtain as my backdrop. I hit submit with trembling hands, and then went to my 6 a.m. shift like nothing happened. A week later, I got the email. Congratulations! You've been selected as one of 6 finalists for the Forge Capital pitch event. I just stared at the screen. This time, I didn't laugh. I didn't scream. I cried. Not because I thought I would win, but because, for the first time since walking away from my parents' house, someone, anyone, thought I was worth betting on. The event was held in a repurposed factory loft downtown. Exposed brick, hanging Edison bulbs, rows of steel chairs, very startup chic. The other finalists? One was a Harvard MBA working on a medical drone company. Another had a team of 3 and a slick-looking app that tracked carbon offsets. There was a guy pitching an AI dog training tool that had already gone semi-viral on TikTok. And me? Just a barista in secondhand heels, carrying a backpack full of handouts I printed at the public library. No team, no credentials, no connections. But I had a story, and I had a product that solved a very real, very personal problem. The room didn't know it yet, but I wasn't there just to pitch an idea. I was pitching my only way out. I was the fourth to present, which meant I had about 30 minutes to sit in the green room and cycle through every possible disaster scenario in my head. What if the mic cuts out? What if the slides don't load? What if I forget my own name? I'd printed my pitch deck at the public library. Black and white, no color, because I couldn't afford it. I'd practiced my timing so often that I could recite the opening with my eyes closed. Still, my palms were sweating so much that I had to wipe them on my thrifted blazer 3 times before they called me up. The stage was bare. Just a mic stand, a projector screen, and rows of investors behind folding tables. The kind with branded water bottles and polished shoes. Next up, the host said, Jessica Moore, presenting Scholar Mine. I stepped forward. The lights were bright, but the fear? The fear was even brighter. But then I remembered what I'd told myself backstage. You don't need to impress them. You need them to understand why this has to exist. I opened with a statistic. Every year, over $100 million in private scholarship money goes unclaimed, not because students don't qualify, but because they never even knew it existed. A few nods. I kept going. Most scholarship search engines are clunky, generic, or tied to universities. They miss the nuance, the niche opportunities tied to identity, geography, family history, personal struggle. So I built ScholarMine, an AI-powered platform that helps students find the scholarships they didn't even know they were eligible for. I walked them through how the engine worked, crawling small foundations, obscure databases, and even community forums, matching student profiles with ultra-specific filters. It's like a dating app, but for tuition money. They laughed, in a good way. Then came the Q&A. One of the judges, a woman with kind eyes and a Yale law pin, leaned forward and asked, Jessica, this is impressive work. May I ask, were you ever a scholarship recipient? It was an innocent question, but it hit harder than I expected. I didn't flinch. I didn't laugh it off. I told the truth. No, I said calmly. I was supposed to be. My parents set up a college fund when I was a kid. But last year, they emptied it to help my older brother start a business that failed within 2 months. Silence. Not awkward, not pitying. Respectful silence. And I held it for a second. So no, I never got a scholarship, but I'm building a tool to make sure thousands of others do, because it shouldn't take losing everything to realize the system is broken. When I stepped off the stage, I didn't know if I'd nailed it or just trauma dumped in front of a dozen investors. But something shifted in that room. People who'd been politely listening started paying attention. Later that evening, when they announced the winner, I heard my name. Only, they didn't just give me the $25,000 prize. The head of Forge Capital pulled me aside and said, We'd like to offer you $100,000 in pre-seed capital. No strings attached. We think you're building something important. I nodded, too stunned to speak. But in my head, something whispered. They took your fund. You built your own. Success doesn't arrive with fireworks. It creeps in quietly, like waking up one day and realizing the storm has passed. 18 months after that pitch night, I was standing in a shared workspace in Boston, staring at a glass wall where someone had scribbled, ScholarMine, 200,000 users. It didn't feel real, but the growth was. Word spread fast. Mostly because students talk, especially broke ones. And when one person finds $3,000 in some obscure scholarship for first-gen Hispanic students pursuing environmental law, they tell everyone. We launched a Chrome extension. We partnered with financial aid offices at smaller colleges. Then came the article in TechCrunch, followed by a profile in Forbes, the woman behind the scholarship engine that's leveling the playing field. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant, but mostly, I felt free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't checking over my shoulder to see if someone was going to pull the rug out from under me. No one could cancel this. No one could drain it. Because this empire had my name on it, and only mine. Meanwhile, back home, things were quieter. I didn't reach out, but I still knew. Jason's business, JR Concepts, officially dissolved. Their website vanished. The Yelp reviews remained like gravestones. Never showed up. Took our deposit, never called back. The truck Dad bought him? Repossessed. Mom stopped posting family brunch pics on Facebook. Then one day, I got an alert on my old banking email, still tied to the credit reporting account I'd set up back when I discovered the loan in my name. It said, property associated with account holder listed as distressed asset. I knew the address by heart. My childhood home was in pre-foreclosure. A week later, a call came through. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Mom. Hey honey, just checking in. Would love to hear from you. Dad hasn't been sleeping much. Jason? Well, he's trying. We know we made some mistakes. Call us? Then came the texts, then emails, then silence again. I didn't reply. Not because I hated them, but because I no longer needed closure from them. That's the thing no one tells you about healing. Sometimes, it looks like a conversation. Other times, it looks like choosing not to answer. It came through my inbox like any other cold email. Subject line: interested in co-investing in a foreclosed residential property? I almost deleted it. One of those bulk real estate newsletters I'd signed up for back when ScholarMine was still just an idea. But something about the address listed made me pause. I read it twice. Then again, it was my parents' house. Apparently, the foreclosure had gone through quietly. No social media posts, no GoFundMe, no dramatic sale sign on the lawn. Just gone. Absorbed into a list of distressed properties some real estate firm in Boston was flipping to mid-tier investors. And now they were shopping for partners. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I clicked, interested. A week later, I was sitting across from two partners at a converted shipping container office near the seaport. They were going over numbers, timelines, rent projections. One of them pointed at the screen. This one's interesting. Decent bones, structurally solid, and it's still occupied by the previous owners. We'd have to negotiate relocation or convert it to a leaseback. I asked if we could keep the family in place, under a formal lease. They shrugged. Sure, as long as the payments are on time. I signed the documents. Just like that, the house I once cried myself to sleep in now had my name on the deed. I didn't tell them right away. A month passed, then two. The firm's property manager visited, went over the new lease terms with my parents, let them know the home had a new ownership group. No drama, just paperwork. But one evening, my phone rang. Unknown number, again. I picked up this time. Dad's voice was small, tired. Jess, I guess I should have figured it out. The paperwork, the lease. It's you, isn't it? I didn't deny it. There was a long pause. Then he asked, almost whispering, Why? Why would you do this? I sat with that question for a moment. Then I said, because I needed a place to store what little trust I had left. They pay rent now, every month. On time. There's no confrontation, no shouting, no guilt tripping. Just silence and receipts. I don't visit. I don't call. But sometimes, I drive past when I'm back in town for business meetings or speaking engagements at local colleges. The house looks smaller than I remembered, but I've grown bigger than it ever allowed me to be. The email came from a Forbes contributor. I almost thought it was spam. He said he'd heard about ScholarMine through an education technology panel in Austin. Said he was fascinated not just by the product, but by the story behind it. I'm profiling under 30 founders who came from unconventional backgrounds, he wrote. Would you be open to talking? We did a virtual interview later that week. I sat in my tiny home office with bad lighting and a ring light I bought off Craigslist. He asked the usual founder stuff: vision, growth, scalability. But eventually he paused, lowered his voice, and said, Do you mind if I ask, where did the idea for ScholarMine really come from? And for the first time, I answered that question fully. I told him about the scholarship I never got, the fund that vanished, the business loan in my name, the nights working the register at a cafe while teaching myself Python between customers. I didn't cry. I didn't dramatize. I just told it straight. Because that was the power I had now. To tell the story my way, not as someone who lost something, but as someone who built something better in its place. 2 weeks later, the article went live. Front page of the entrepreneurship section. From betrayal to breakthrough, how one girl turned debt into a dream. There was a picture of me. Blazer, soft smile, arms crossed, standing in front of a whiteboard full of product sketches and scholarship criteria. The story went viral on LinkedIn, even made it to the homepage of Yahoo News for a few hours. My inbox exploded. Investors, school counselors, students who messaged me paragraphs like, I didn't think people like me were allowed to win until I read about you. But one message stopped me cold. It was from Jason. Subject line: I saw the article. The body was short. I don't know if it means anything now, but I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much they took from you until I lost everything myself. I hope you're okay. I really do. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, You don't have to apologize for being the one they chose. You just never figured out how to use that choice wisely. No hate, no warmth, just the truth. I didn't expect a reply. He didn't send one. And that was fine, because this time the world knew who I was. And more importantly, so did I. 3 years after ScholarMine launched, we hit 1 million users. The team grew from just me and my duct-taped laptop to 20 employees and 2 full-time data engineers. We had partnerships with over 100 schools and were working with a nonprofit to bring the platform to under-resourced high schools. We even started getting interest from national education departments overseas. But the part that meant the most to me was a tab we added to the homepage. Jessica's Fund, scholarships for students who were left behind. It wasn't flashy. No press release. No gala dinner with string quartets and donors in tuxedos. Just a simple form for students like I used to be, first generation, low income, burned by broken promises. Kids who didn't have a safety net, but had fight. We issued our first 10 grants that fall. One went to a girl in Ohio whose parents told her college was a waste of time. One went to a boy in Arizona who worked full-time at his uncle's auto shop, but still graduated valedictorian. I read every essay, every story, and I didn't see victims. I saw versions of myself, a little bruised, a little tired, but still moving forward. Sometimes people ask me why I never sued my parents. Why I didn't drag the whole thing through court or write a book with names and receipts. Here's why. Because I wasn't trying to ruin anyone's life. I was trying to rebuild mine. My power was never in revenge. It was in refusal. Refusal to shrink, to disappear, to let betrayal define me. That's the thing no one teaches you growing up. That peace isn't the end of the fight. Peace is what you build after you've survived it. I haven't spoken to my family in over 2 years now. But sometimes I wonder if they've seen the site, if they know about the fund, if they realize that I took what they broke and made it matter. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Either way, it doesn't change what's already been built. Because the truth is, they used my name to launch someone else's dream. I used that pain to build an empire of my own.